Welcome back, audience. Hope you're doing good. As always, welcome back to another one. Today, we're going to talk about simulation versus holography, or matrix versus holistics. What is the difference? It's super fascinating. And why is it important? And how exactly is it can extend to the actual framework of your life, your personal life as you as an individual, your social life, how you know, the principles you live by in a social scale, which is, um, family, friends, business partners, a state, the country, the world, right? How it can permeate throughout everything and have that fractal type of um, framework that is on a smaller scale and a larger scale and a larger scale and a larger scale that allows us to live holistically at the same time protecting it, keep on protecting the holistic way of life on a personal level, on a societal level. It is the only way that is possible to live on this planet harmoniously. It is not weak way, it's a very strong way, and it's based on the principle of the game of consciousness. You have to play it on all the levels: the spirit, the soul, the mind, and the body. And recognize that maliciousness can arise in a spirit, in a soul, in the mind, and the body. And we have to have a protection at all the levels. Okay, if society does not have spiritual protection from malice, malice will come seep in, and somebody, like, is gonna get hurt, and then it's gonna go to malice and say, well, I got hurt, now I'm going to go on the revenge trip, and then they're gonna go on this revenge trip, and the malice is born, and you have somebody who, if it's very strongly and powerful intellectually, you'll have it as a certain leader of a country that just bombs children for no reason whatsoever, just pure hate, right? And so you have that because somebody got butthurt when they were young, for example, and that malice kept on growing. That tree of malice. There's a tree of life which needs to be. It's like a garden. It's a way of life that you have to prune it. You have to fence it. You have to care for it. So you live in the in a service of the garden, which is the way of life. And if you do that, then you can have this life experience as school, as a game, not as a prison or perpetual fighting wars and stuff like that. You see, this is why I'm talking about the war that ends all wars, and it's not primarily done through the military power or force, even though the force is necessary for the reason of defending the way of life against the corrupt ideologies, but not becoming the corrupt ideology itself. Does that make sense? Because as soon as it becomes a corrupt ideology, the force that's been dedicated for protection of holistics now is being wielded by the corrupt ideology. Okay? And the only way this can possibly be done if people live outside of the matrix and not part of the belief systems. The variety and the culture that could still be there, languages, everything, right? But they are just separations of the mind, but not of the heart. The very word holistic means that you're connected to the one thing called source. That's where all your uniqueness stem from, and it does not even run by the same motivations as it would run by the matrix, right? So it is, whether you are living direct reality or simulated reality, it really depends on your own internal wiring. And The wiring depends on whether you're alchemizing the beginning of the maliciousness. I don't know if you noticed that. I mean, I hope you do. But if you find yourself keep seeking something outside of yourself, book a session with me. Shameless blog. So, all right. So there's a distinction between the matrix holistics or simulated reality and holographic reality. Holographic from the distinction that you're seeing this as from the whole, not from the fragmented perspective. Okay, this is very important because you can see the world either from the fragmented perspective, which is a belief system, or you can see the world through whole. And then that means that there is something inside of you, right? Must be this one whole I that has no fragments. You're looking at everything unfiltered, and that is a direct experience of the reality, and it's absolutely magical, and it arises upon alchemizing the energies, then engaging your senses, the enjoyment of your senses, the enjoyment of the feelings, and which are, by the way, relationships, because a relationship is a feeling. If you're relating and connecting with somebody, it is because of that harmonious melodic feeling that is running through your system. And so this is where your identity really is, unfrozen, alive, ever changing. So to be whole in your heart, it is a continuous work. I call it alchemy and theurgy. Okay? Now, you don't want to be whole in the mind. This is where the fragmentation and limitation and separation is valid. Okay? This is why the solution is not just to dissolve the borders and let everybody travel the way it was. No, it is not a solution. It is not about merging together in the mind, because that's going to be just breeding the conflict, because the mind has separations and boundaries on purpose, because these fragments do not match on purpose, because it produces the variety, the interest, the curiosity, and all these other things in a positive way. But there is a union and cohesion on a soul level, not on the physical level, not on the mental level. Okay, especially when you still live in a world where people function on the belief systems. You want your mind to be completely impermeable, impenetrable to any of these ideas, ideologies, and all these kind of things, right? And the difference in the separation now becomes like, maybe cultural or whatever, but not, ideological, not because of, or you're different to me, therefore I gotta be cautious and afraid of you because you're separate from me, in my soul. It's not like that. But you can't just make everybody homogeneous. You see, the mistake is everybody try to make everybody homogeneous in the mind level or the body level. No, you make variety. Like, for example, one of the goals that I have about on a agroforestry project is maximum yield and maximum biodiversity from one given plot of land, with all the most efficient nutrient systems, technological systems that take care of the plants and stimulate the growth in the right way, and takes care of the weeds, stimulates, the weed becomes the manure for the plants that produce the fruit. You see, like it's gardening. So that's what I would like to see as one of the most, significant investment of resources is building these types of gardens. We used to have that, like every house used to have that attached to the house. There was this almost like a greenhouse, and people were just growing all sorts of interesting things. It was a sign of luxury that someone can have this garden, that they grow all sorts of fancy plants, and you know what I'm trying to say. These old, I don't know how they called, but I'm sure you do. These adjacent structures that made out of glass by the side of the house. Um, and so I would like to see these ecosystems being built, these gardens. It's possible. It can be done. Um, and by the way, that garden is part of what sustains the community that takes care of that garden. It's your supermarket, you see. And through the technology and all this other means, like, anyway, I'm seeing that this is the highest leverage of investment of the energy is to creating sustainable, biodiverse, high yield producing gardens. It may not seem, but that challenge itself will would make people collaborate and you see what I'm trying to say, and work together. So what I'm saying here, so those principles of keeping that type of biodiversity, the same thing in cultural. You want the cultural diversity. You want things kind of made different, in different way and whatever. But what you don't want is you don't want the difference in the heart, because in the heart we're all meant to be the same. But if there's a difference in the heart, then there's conflict there. There's hatred there. There's all these kind of things, right? And it's not easy. It's okay. Let's just talk about this. How do you live in this direct reality and being functional in this life, not weak, not kind of hippie, participating in the society, and watching highest points of leverage in the society that should be changed, engaging that, putting your energy behind it to make that change, and not just living, in a system that is governed by the morons and the idiots and saying like, well, it's not fair, the government is going to ruin everything, but I'm just little me. No, you can be the government. If you have wisdom, you can be the government. And the way I see everything, I am considering myself, actually, just recently I started considering and say like, you know what, I'm writing a book, I'm building these frameworks. I mean, I still have a lot of work to do to build that framework that works even in theory, and then you see, because it has to incorporate all sorts of things: the alchemy, theurgy, thaumaturgy, physiurgy. And I have 100% confidence that, given the fact that there's a use of all of those four faculties, if there's a use of all those four faculties, then that work is the war that ends all wars. And it's not necessarily, like I said, physically or forcefully imposed. Even though you still need policing, you will still need to protect holistic way of life against the corrupt way of life. This is why I say the holistics against the matrix, not matrix against the matrix, which is how it propagates itself, you see. But I understand that when people lived most of their lives in the holistics and they function through the programming, they never experience reality directly as it is. To them, it may seem that it's just another branch of matrix. But there is a complete and total recognition here that it is not. It is something that could be not part of it, and want to propagate life that is sustainable, beautiful, and awesome, and creative, and Renaissance-like. that is protected, not weak. Nobody can come in, and just take you over, like you just helpless little bunnies. No, military has to be actually it has to be the strongest military protecting the holistic. Of course, the holistic system will always have to be self-correcting. All these principles must be sustained throughout to have that kingdom running, because at any point the corruption may breed. Like I said, it's like this example of somebody got hurt, and that hurt started growing, and that person silently grew that freaking seed of evil, and not making any waves, to became a leader in politics, and then freaking, committed the genocide or whatever, like that, right? You don't want this to happen. So there's that awareness of malice of all the levels, and this type of society must be aware and not allow even to be born at the beginning. And if something slips through, should be able to handle it with with force, apprehend the person who's acting from malice for whatever reason, even if it's injected alien programming through some psi attacks. If it just arises, this society immediately detects it as immune system, detects the foreign. This is not connected to the source. There's an entity that is not connected to the source, under surveillance. So you see, it really is whatever that force, whatever the military force is being run by. You see? But it must be there. We don't live in this type of world where we can just kumbaya. It's not. It has to be part of it. This idea that, like, commune and stuff, this is what I didn't really like about these and so-called enlightened people, which seems that, of course, some of them, they were alchemists and they were able to hold the fire, but they never really did anything with it. They created some commune and shit like that, and it's done. Or not even a commune. Well, whether the physical commune, right now they like to create like digital communes, and whine about the government. Hey, why don't you just go there? If you have wisdom, why don't you just go there and do your fucking job? Because the wise person's supposed to be in charge. Stop fucking whining about it. Go there. At least that's my view right now. And but you see, if you're not holding your heart, you have no business going there. If you're going there out of anger, if you're going there, out of hatred or these other, emotions that are not yet been alchemized, then you're not doing the right thing. But if you're going there to protect the way of life that you live yourself, within your consciousness, with your family and friends, then you have a right. And I don't know, I think it has to be some sort of measurement of incoherence, which can be looked at not as a problem, but is something that needs attention. This is what happens within my consciousness, your consciousness as well, right? There might be some incoherence that arising, and I notice myself, I'm watching something and it just pisses me off, and just this arises, this incoherence, because what I'm noticing is corrupt. What I'm noticing is not correct. So this piss offness arises, that incoherence within me. But what I do then, it's very important, because if I propagate it and then continue saying this thing that I found to be corrupt, and saying, but recognition is enough. You don't have to ruminate about it and say this is wrong, this is not. No. Once it's enough to recognize it. Now I'm talking about this principle of zeroing it out. Because people say energy goes where the attention goes, right? Or the whatever place your attention, that's what you get more, right? So focus on the good things, focus on the good things, focus on the good things. This is not a complete and accurate view. This is erroneous principle. It is not how it works. The way it works is that there's two types of attentions. Actually, there's four, I told you. But you can split the yin attention, the yang attention. We talked about this before. But what happens? People say, well, don't look at the negative. No, this is not correct. You look at the negative. You look at the disorder. You look at the corruption. Okay? You do look at it. But you don't look from it. You look at it. The feelings arise. And now you're in position to zero them out. You've discovered a demon. You've discovered a corruption. And it is a type of zeroing it out. And it can be done, and I've done it many times, and it's not easy, but it can be done. It is the thing that you don't want to look at because it hurts, but you got to look at this and zero it out. And as soon as I started doing this, all these type of emotions of jealousy, envy, and all these other things that were arising, because the things that I didn't want to look at. And before I would look at it and it would be, there's a lot of fire there, right? And so what do I do with the fire? And there's two ways of doing it. One, you can go into the dark passion. What you can do with that energy is get angry out of the jealousy, take some sort of stupid ass action, and become kind of brute and whatever and beat somebody up. So that's dark passion. But what you can do also with that energy is zero it out. And it is type of complete attention and expansiveness. It's more about like surrendering it, that energy, to the zero. Because you found the incoherence, now you're zeroing it out. Once you zero it out, that image no longer evokes those feelings. And you look at that image, it does not invoke jealousy or envy or anything like that. It doesn't even invoke any of this anger or anything which is dark passion or lust even. Doesn't invoke that. It's just complete silence. It's just an image that is inert right now because you zeroed it out. Now that it's been zeroed out, you don't have to do this zeroing out thing anymore. Now you can put attention on a light passion. You can put attention on what does make you feel really good and ride that puppy. Until comes a time where your attention is going to be needed on another quote-unquote negative thing. So the game is like this. It's like you're not avoiding the negative thing. Actually, what you do is you keep seeking the negative thing. You're always scanning for the negative thing within yourself. If it arises, this is a continuous alchemical process that you keep on doing. If anything arises, zero it out, put it into passion. And if you keep on doing this, you're always reducing the corruption, reducing the matrix, and entering more and more of the direct experience of life. And then when you experience a life like that, everything is kind of seen through the magical lens. You don't see people as some ideology or anything. You recognize the variety that is there, but there is no judgment at all. emotional judgment I'm talking about, right? There's nothing there that's going on. And because if there's nothing there going on, and the reason is nothing there is going on because there's too much joy and enjoyment there for you to recognize any kind of, you know, uh, separation there. Does that make sense? And then you may be in the reality. Jesus said, like, in the world, but not of the world. Basically, you are in the virtual reality, but it's not because everything is virtual, but you're no longer in a simulation. You see things directly for what they are. And when I say see, it's not the eyes, even though what you see with your eyes may be quite vividly enjoyable, but everything is the heart. It is the type of connectedness with it, to everything. It is a type of intimacy with everything. It's a type of touching with everything. It's being that type of experience of reality. And it requires alchemy and theurgy. Because that negativity, that incoherence, as I call it, does require your attention. And the positivity is an emergent property. You don't need to seek positive. Positive emerges as a emergent property upon dissolution of everything that is negative within your heart. So you see, it's the opposite. The seeking of positive is evil. It's maliciousness. The digging the negative until, it's no more, the positive arises naturally. So you can see how all of this industry of helping people is Luciferian. Everybody, not everybody, there's a lot of people who are doing the right way, but they're sort of like right now a bit of like a mavericks, and because it does destroy the industry. You have to understand, it does destroy the industry of self-help. It does destroy necessity for that at all. So if somebody is fragmented and their livelihood depends on it, there will be resistance there. It's futile, but there will be resistance. And matrix is defined by the misuse of energy, that energy is circulating in the field that it's not meant to be, right? It is like, I'm hurt, I need to seek for something that feels good. What is it that I need to have? I need to have this, and it's never ending, and so on and so on. But have you ever looked at that hurt? Often people, when they look at it, they can't find that hurt. And they realize that it's always about experiencing life through that, placing attention onto where they think it's self. You experience everything through that. You connect with people through that, to things, you have a real direct relationship to things, right? Because if you do that, then you get the difference between what is the soul world which is supposed to be connected, and the mind world, which is supposed to be separate and segregate. And you don't confuse the two. But if you don't do that, then you're going to try to make, you believe that everybody's supposed to be friends and the same, and and do you try to make everybody uh, force everybody to be friends, or non-violent, and engaging in violence to make people non-violent. You see what I'm trying to say? There's still a matrix. There's still this process of thought that it is futile, it is self-destructing, it's fragmented, and it's incorrect. So there is no other way. The way the consciousness works is the way the consciousness works. The soon you place your attention on that thing that is asking you to do things and whatnot, then that will be the beginning of the dissolution of that thing. And you'll notice that it may ask, like I said, there's 4 types of attention that it asks. It is a definition of alchemy, and whichever level of the game you chose to play, it may not ask you to go that deep. If you chose to play the more shallower way, of life, fine, but there's still, it will require you to do the exact same thing. If you want to be individual. Now, not everybody is individual, and some, they just have to be background, but but that world, you see, even the matrix has its purpose. It has to be shrunken and only function as a technological assistance. You see, because you need a layer of society that's automated, programmable, reliable on the structures and all that stuff. You need that, but there's no longer souls participating in that. You see, and it's not a society; it is a technology. So there, and honestly, that layer of people who govern completely by the entities, for example, those entities, they're no longer technically entities, but what I'm saying, that if a person is completely governed by if then that person is great soldier. That person is great for the military because it's like a robot, or it's a great machinist, or you see what I'm trying to say? I'm saying that this model even allows the people, or the I shouldn't say individuals, but the entities that have no soul, they still have a purpose. And they function from, and look, your body is functioning like that. Like there's part of you that's always going to be matrix-like, your body. Because your body will always need to seek food. There's nothing wrong with that. But you see, in your soul, you don't seek something that is already there. That's stupid. But in your body and the mind is different. And I really want to distinguish those things, you see. Because the way I describe virtual reality or reality is a physics rule set imposed on your experience. I can't just move through space-time with my thought and my intent. I have to sacrifice the energy and move according to the laws of physics. physical world. That's what's called physical world. Now, if that rule set is applied, in that moment, there is a reality. If that is not applied, then I call it imaginality or imagination. But I like imaginality better because it's type of reality that is very moldable and fluid, and I can, like if you ever had a lucid dream, you know what I'm talking about. You can go through a reality that seems quite rigid and fixed, and then immediately change it and change the color of the doors, and then go back again to the frozen, right? So the reason I say imaginality, because upon intent of freezing it and making it act through the laws of physics, it'll act as the laws of physics. It's unbelievable, but that's how it is. I could, for example, say, all right, enough with the laws of physics, and then start flying, walking through walls, and all that stuff. Or I could say, all right, I'm locked in the world of physics, and then I cannot fly, and I cannot walk through doors, through walls, right? I'm bound to the laws of physics. So imaginality has that quality. And then at a deeper level, so we have reality, imaginality, and at a deeper level we have, you can call it causality, but I have a better name for this. Let's leave it at causality. And only at the deepest level is there a truth. Truth is, sometimes people say, well, that is kind of relative truth, and there's an absolute truth, and there's a relative truth. You don't have to say relative truth the truth is absolute truth. The truth is always mystery. The truth, causality, imaginality, reality. And so you could be in a simulation, right? Like if your heart falls asleep, and poof, now your motivational mechanism is different and changed, and it begins to seek the fixing of the feeling, you are in a simulation. Okay, it's a type of mode of being. You are an NPC right in that moment. But if you're out of it, and there is no motion of seeking, but there is an enjoyment there of everything that is around you, what then? Then your body remains functioning according to the laws of matrix. Only your body. Not even your mind. Why not even your mind? But this needs to be trained, like imaginality needs to be trained. Because if you look at the image of the galaxy, as we know, you'll see that there is, if it's a really good image, you'll see that there is a neutron star in the center, the black hole, and then the gamma ray beaming up and down, and there's a disk of spiraling matter. And it's just an outer layer of that spiraling matter. What we don't see is those three inner layers that are not visible because they're not physical, but they're there. If you could superimpose in that picture, you'll see that it extends from the nucleus to the matter, but you only see the matter. But those invisible layers imply there is a connection to the infinity. This is why they're invisible. Because when it's purely temporal, then it is matter, it is physics. Now, because mind or imagination does not operate through these laws of physics, but if your mind does operate through the laws of physics or limitations, then there is a problem. It's supposed to be completely infinite based, no limit. Causality has no limits. Imaginality meant to have no limits. And truth has no limits. The only limited thing is supposed to be material thing, physical thing. Okay? Which, by the way, based on what I'm saying right now, it appears to be where the memory is actually, stored, if you will, or can be stored. Obviously, the memory can only be stored in time because it's a memory, and memory implies time. But if my, soul is at the infinite capacity, meaning that in a second that it needs something, it is there. Mind, in the second that there's a desire something, it is there, right? Then where's the memory? The memory has to be that physical layer, that we call it physical layer, that should only store skills, habits. I don't know if anything else, because if it doesn't store beliefs anymore, it has to store just skills, habits, and what else? Concepts, I suppose. There but even that I'm questioning, like I'm questioning. Well, maybe I shouldn't, because if you wake up in the morning and you have no memory of what kind of role you're playing in life, that's a bit of a problematic thing, so for example, if you're an engineer, that's just a role that you're playing, but it's a concept that has to be in your memory. If you wake up in the morning and you forgot that you're playing one of the roles in your life that is engineer, it's a bit of a problem, see? But it's not a belief. It's not the same. Having some concept of yourself as engineer is not a belief. It is a type of still conceptual system. And you probably, before engaging in working as engineer, you probably need to imagine yourself what's that like, on what the engineer, being as an engineer, feels like. But it is there. But it is at the avatar level. The concept is at the avatar level. It's the role that you're playing. It's not even an imaginality. It's not even a mind, because mind is not limited by this. You can imagine being a bird, and if there's no limits of you not being a bird, then you're a bird. I've had these experiences where I wanted to see what it's like, being an eagle. It's a dope feeling, flying over the view, and this is just complete freedom, and it's just like, it's boss. So most of the time birds fly because it feels so good, not because they're looking for prey or something like that. And then whenever there's a hunger, then there is a hunting, obviously. But anyway, I digress. Going back on it, you see, imagination is not limited. So all you have is just this thin layer of matter, memory, and concepts in a holistic being. But if your mind is limited, and if your heart is limited, then you're not a holistic being, because that infinite has not invaded your being all the way to matter. And there's no need to cross through the matter, and there's no need to do that. Absolutely no need to do that, okay? And people who are just working really hard to break the laws of physics, you have to ask, why do you want to do that? And it's 100% of the case is a type of cheating, right? Maybe showing off or cheating. No, the laws of physics are the laws of physics. Don't fuck with them. You don't have to break the laws of physics. If you, because there is also non-physical reality. There is also a 0 point. So you use that for that. If you see what I'm trying to say? Non-temporal reality is for non-temporal temporal matters. You leave the laws of physics alone. You see? So you don't need to break anything. Don't need to show off that you. I don't want to go into this. I don't want to criticize, but bending a spoon never ever helped anybody unless you needed to, and the only way was to scrape something out was to bend the spoon. Before you can do that, then it was useful tool. But just to bend the spoon and to show it, like, hey, look at me, I bent the spoon. Okay, congratulations. Okay, nice. Can you cure cancer? No, but I can bend the spoon. Okay, congratulations. Congratulations. Good job. Good job. Bend the spoon. Stop fucking bending spoons and focus on what really matters. It does, and the things that really matters, they don't really have that type of gimmick effect. Anyway, so you see what I'm talking about here. So holistic society must be consisting of people who are already integrated the infinity all the way to their avatar level, and they respect also this level to function normal as it should. Your body should function normal as it should. It has its needs, and you satisfy these needs in, and nutrition, everything. You care of your body just to make sure that your vessel that you're in is functioning properly, and you really care about it, because you don't just roid yourself up to look good, because that's not caring for the body. You see, because you're damaging, you're dysregulating HPTA system. You're dysregulating a lot of things when you just inject exogenous hormones. And as much as I like getting pumped and get swole, I'm out of this. Nope. Because I realize this is not taking care of the body, because there's like this agenda to get swole. It's like that could be replaced by fortitude. Is one of those things. Your hormones are being released whenever you are overcoming something that is difficult, or you need to use intellect to overcome something that is difficult, right? And you exercise in a gym with full attention, and you engage, the flow of energy there as well. When you exercise, your whole body is flowing through energy. It's not that you're just contracted over here and that you're trying to get to the end. No, there's just complete enjoyment in it. The energy is flowing there. And if you do this way, your hormones are going to be released. Okay? And you will be very strong. Your muscles will be hard and real. But they're not going to be swole, because this swelling is not the muscle, like this you get swole because of the exogenous hormones, but you can release it naturally. Is what I'm saying. Okay? And there's certain things that you got to do to release them naturally. but requires you to overcome something. And so then when there's a testosterone is high in your body, it's because you are a man. You understand? You do something that is manly. You do something that it requires hardness, fire and all these other things. That's why you have testosterone in your body. Not because you're exogenally injected. Then your body is full of testosterone, but it was not earned. You see? And testosterone rises when there's an energy flow. When you're working out and you're overcoming resistance. Okay? You're overcoming the resistance, so the energy is flowing. And it could be, fighting. Or I don't want to expand on the subject, but what I'm trying to say here is that it's another subject, okay? Don't want to expand on this one. Look, I know. I go to the gym once a week, okay? But I do it for real. It's not enough. I agree that it's not enough. I should do at least 2 or 3 times a week. But anyway, I think I'm getting distracted with other things. Going back on the virtual reality, the difference between simulation and holistic, or the emergent reality versus the simulated reality. You can use any kind of names for it, but it is real. It is how you experience the reality. And I'm just in a process of this, I know how it works. I know what it takes. And I'm just trying to master all of these so I could, consider myself a whole, holistic, and integral person. And I recognize that until I am like that, like when I can't ask anybody else to be like that, or but it is a process. Like there's certain things that I can still do externally, which I discipline myself externally, which the same way I can see that it has to be reflected on discipline on a state level, country level, all that stuff. That is coming back in fashion, because people just been led to do whatever they want, and it's just this false agreeableness that like, oh, it's okay, yeah, do whatever. And it's weird. People now realizing, oh no, these are mentally ill people. We got to lock them up. There's something horribly wrong with them. Ideologically driven people are mentally ill people. Just because they're functional does not mean that they're not mentally ill. You can always detect mental illness based on their energy. Being in the matrix, to me, is a mental illness. Unless you're a robot. And, but again, like, I have to be careful by not naming matrix. To me, matrix is where it is invasion of where the holistic is supposed to, where the infinity is supposed to take place. There's an invasion of temporality, you see, and that's my definition. But when only the body remains functioning there and everything else is holistic, then that is not a matrix. But matrix seems to be shrunken to its appropriate place which we need to call it something different. We got to call it something different. If we're defining matrix to be the invasion of the space where holistic is meant to be, then whenever it's shrunken into where it's appropriate, it must be called differently. Avatar is a good name, and this is what made me realize that this is the only place where this type of temporal memory is stored. All this other type of memory is quantum. It contains all the possible permutations. So, when you close your eyes and you can imagine whatever the fuck you want. It is not limited. By the way, this is just one of those things that we have to be working and developing. Just like I'm doing alchemy, which I'm getting kind of decent at it, but I still see my limits there and stuff like that. And I'm working on theurgy as well. And sometimes, again, I have my moments where it's like, okay, I don't know. Like sometimes, like when I get the hang of it and I'm doing it, and I'm like, shit, like where do I have this? So intuitive that where do I have this in me? Does that make sense? It's like, where's it coming from? How the fuck do I know to do all of that? But that is the best is where that takes over. You may have like some general intent to feel something, but how to get there, you let this other intuitive thing just to do this magical thing to bring the state that you're asking for. So this type of finding, for example, when you're in a lucid dream, how do you manifest something? The best way to manifest something is to find it. For example, like if I want an apple or whatever, then you can say like, let me check my pocket, or let me open the let me open something and there's going to be an apple. It is a type of finding, and that's the easiest way. Or you could just manifest directly. It's not that easy to just manifest an apple, you see. But there's still going to be that type of looking for an apple in ether. It's a type of seeking, looking, and it's like, woof, there's an apple. You see? So if you go through the source, through the spirit, soul, and mind, everything is legit. Everything is legit, but you gotta go. This is my take right now, that you don't go into the mind, which is imagination, if you don't have that connection to the source first. This is why I'm trying to learn different way to have astral projection and out-of-body experiences through the coherence, which, by the way, this is how Robert Monroe originally was training people and himself through coherence, not the tricks. There are tricks where you can just do them, but it was being trained through the coherence. And that is the best way. Because why is it the best way? Because you don't end up in a world of the mind subject to all of these forces there, and you just completely out of control, being messed with, or shown something that is not there, tricked and all that stuff. But when you enter the mind world through the coherence, there's nothing that can trick you. You see? And that's where our most focus is supposed to be. This is where our attention has to be the most. Okay? So I don't know. You see, like this, there's so much work to do, and it's fascinating work that actually matters. It matters, even though it's not flashy. Nobody sees this thing. You know, they may see the results years from where you started. But that's too late. You know, it's too late. The fun was getting there. So I'm gonna just remain doing this thing. Like, I mean, my life is pretty settled really well for this work. I can see how societies can be better. I can see how these blueprints are important to implement. Whatever it takes, I got time. I know exactly what they need to work on. I'm not lost anymore. And even if the feeling confusion is there, I know that there is some sort of gem of clarity if confusion arises. You can alchemize confusion into clarity. And even as I'm saying these words, like the pressure is coming on me, because as I'm saying these words, these are genuine intent, and it's not gonna happen unless I've alchemized a lot of energy for these things to come true. And there's no more gimmicks, no more getting fascinated with this, um, you know, this, seeking external information, reading like a guys, man, like everything is already within your consciousness. There's principles that, like I said, is so basic, they're so simple. And then what do you want? Then anything that you want is there. So the only need for you to read a book, because if you have a question of the way of things, of how things work, it's there. You can get an answer. This way, the best way to have the real answer is coherence first, and then through causal natural realities, you can have direct answer. Um, and you can write a book. It's very seldom that is worthy reading a book. There are great books out there, for sure, but there are very few. You can just go out and read thousands of books, but they're not gonna have like that great impact if those few select books could, as those few select books could. But those few select books, what do they normally do? They invite you to the adventure. They invite you to the experience. This is why my book is not going to be just like entertainment. It's going to be pure manual for consciousness. How exactly it works, tested, verified, um, backed by 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 physics and observations in physics and quantum physics and all that stuff, and verified. Just because you say like, oh, quantum physics works like that, oh, isn't it awesome, and you keep everything in your imagination at that level, like, oh yeah, isn't it? Okay, that's just imagination. This is not a direct experience. You can have direct experience of being one with the quantum field. Then you'll know how it feels like, what's it like, And some people, when they take psychedelics, they report that and say, "Oh my God, I knew everything. Everything is possibly to be known. I could just." There was this Akash, which is basically quantum field, and it says it stores all the information it can possibly be. Well, it is infinite, so so it's not like it generates any kind of memory that you want it to have. It's not storing anything because it has everything. Upon request, poof, there's that experience for you. That's how it works. But the only thing that stores something is your avatar level of the body. But it's not even biological body. There's a layer of your consciousness that is attached sort of like to your biological body where that memory of the avatar is there. Like I said, these are your skills, self-concepts, and everything. Where they are non-infinite, they're temporal. There's something that I'm trying to say. I'm repeating myself, I guess. Yeah, I think it's time to do the work. Anyway, gotta leave it here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.